Despite this week's win, if the Browns start selling, who goes first? Njoku, Jerome Ford, maybe Shelby Harris?
Honestly, they might put the entire O line on Facebook Marketplace. Lightly used needs alignment. That's right. We're talking trades, specifically trades of the Cleveland Browns. Who should we cut? Who should we get rid of, if anybody? I think Noah and I differ a little bit here, but we want to run down some candidates because there's been a lot of names thrown out lately, and rightfully so. We get to this point of the season where you're not looking very good, contracts are ending, perhaps. It's time to kind of think of who could be trade bait and what do we want and who do we want to get rid of, to cut, etc. Noah, you and I are a little on opposite sides of the spectrum here.
Yeah, we are. And it is to note that a lot of these rumors came from an Ian Rappaport tweet that came out last week, I believe, about the Browns potentially being sellers. Now, I don't know if that mood has changed a little bit, obviously, with what's going on with the team now, them winning this game in dominant fashion against the Miami Dolphins. I
One
don't know how
game.
much. One game. I don't know how much credence you put out there, and I'm not talking about you, Eric, but the people listening. Me and you are kind of in the middle of, yes, they beat a bad team. Let's see if they can stack wins before we start pressing the panic button. But I thought now was a good time to talk trades anyway. The trade deadline is officially November 4th. So we have this Patriots game coming up, of course, a bye week. And I think you can make a decision before the Ravens game. But the Ravens game would be past, of course, the trade deadline. So you're kind of looking at the thick of what should we do with this roster? Should we move pieces or should we just stay put?
Yeah, and some of these guys, it's a tough one because a lot of these contracts are ending after this year.
Yeah.
So I think that plays a factor in the determination. The two main things for me were contract and age, and who I determined should go, who should stay. But let's just jump right into it.
Yeah, we'll go with the easy one first. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Jerome Ford, how do you feel about him?
Well, let's just say it together on the count of three. One, two, three. Trade.
Trade his ass. Sorry, I wanted to be a little more emphatic with that, but yeah, I'm all the way good on Jerome Ford taking up snaps in this running back room. Like I said in our post game video, I want to see Dylan Sampson. I want to see Judkins eat up all of those carries. Even Rocket Raheem Sanders, he looked good in some of those snaps he had. We'll have him take some of these reps. Let's get younger. Let's move on from being obsessed with thinking there's something in Jerome Ford and focus mainly on Q Quinshon Judkins.
Jerome Ford just doesn't really fit into this team anymore. We drafted two guys that, frankly, you and I talk about it all the time. I want to see more of. Obviously, we're seeing Quinshon Judkins and what he can do. He's one of the best backs in the league right now. Definitely the best rookie, I would say. But Dylan Sampson's another playmaker that kind of slots in nicely where we could use him in third down situations. I want to see
Right.
more of him where we're seeing Jerome Ford right now. So there's just not a place for him, especially with the contract expiring. Now, that said, I don't know what we get for him. I think there are probably some soft landing spots, but at this point for this time or for this team, and we're going to talk O line here in a minute, as many picks as we can get and we can compile, even if they're six rounders, I think that's better than having a guy stick around that's not going to be on this team next year, regardless.
Yeah, I was going to say I will gladly take a seventh for Jerome Ford and just get him off the books. The same thing that we did with Joe Flacco, man. People hate that trade is a little controversial at this point because it was an inter division rival trade that happened, but we got something out of a guy that was not going to take another snap for us this year. If it wasn't Dylan Gabriel, it was going to be Shador Sanders, and then maybe we would have rounded back if something catastrophic happened. But at that point, that what does it really matter anyway? Give us the pick and let's move on with our life. And shout out to Joe doing his thing down in Cincinnati because it is not our problem right now. We do not play them until week 18, and I am not worried about it right now. But I agree with you. Let's stockpile the draft picks and get a guy that's kind of taking up snaps that doesn't need to be taken up anymore. Quinshon Judkins is the truth. I think we all know it. Let's move forward with him.
Yeah, agreed. And it's not the cap hit's negligible. It's like 1.8 million for this year. It's a team friendly deal, and that's why we retained Ford the way we did, even though we knew we were going to go out and draft guys like that. But yeah, it's time to move on. It's past time, honestly.
Yeah, and it's to note real quick as we move through a lot of these signings too. It's whatever percentage of his check is left as well. So the cap hit on the
Right.
year, if we were to trade him beforehand, would have been that 1.8 blah 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 $1 million. But now it's even less than that because we've already paid him some of that money. It would just be moved to the next team. And it is to note too, this is a really team friendly deal because we restructured his contract in training camp too. So some of one of these teams in the NFC or something like that that could use a second running back or maybe have an injury, by all means, have Jerome Ford. I'll take a seventh. Next year, seventh. Not even this draft, seventh.
Yeah, I'm with you. So we both agree Jerome Ford goes.
You want to go on to the next one?
Let's do it.
Because this one was the inspiration for this topic. We kind of touched base on it lightly yesterday. I don't know if you're still polar opposites with me, but one Chief, David Njoku, who didn't play in the Dolphins game, he had the concussion, of course. Probably going to play this week against the Patriots. How are you feeling about the Chief, man?
I'm on the trade him bandwagon, honestly. I just don't know that. First of all, I think they drafted his replacement in Harold Fannin Jr. I don't think that draft was specifically to pair with Chief. And I should say I like the guy. I think he's evolved into a pretty decent tight end for us. But the kind of money that we're talking that he's gonna want, in my opinion, for his next contract, he's in a contract year, we're not gonna re-sign him. So why not on this dead team that it doesn't matter wins and losses at this point? I'm back to negative today, but you get what I'm
Yeah,
saying. Uh,
I don't get
what
why. You were on a better mind trajectory yesterday, and now you're right back to poo poo Browns. But continue.
because our odds of making the postseason are like 0.5%. My point is, I'm being realistic. Uh, the fact is, David Njoku probably won't be on this team next year. So why not get something for him now?
Yeah, I don't agree with anything you said, flat out. I think there's a good chance that he returns to Cleveland next year. I think that, yes, Harold Fannin is the heir apparent, but I don't think the plan is Harold Fannin year two, week one, ahead of David Njoku. Harold Fannin is an undersized tight end that needs to gain muscle, needs to come into his own, almost like David Njoku had to when we drafted him way back when, I believe 2017, if not 2018. Regardless, um, this offense, the system that we run right now, and I know that can change depending on what happens to Kevin Stefanski and his job, is heavy reliance on two tight end sets. So I think the foolproof plan right now is to continue to move forward with Chief, with Harold Fannin, and see what happens. I also
Y-
think he's a
You're
good culture guy.
you're sidestepping two problems here, in my
What?
opinion. The first is that he's an aging veteran on a team that we need to rebuild. So unless you're named Miles Garrett, that rebuild's probably happening. And two, we're likely losing him in free agency anyway. I agree with everything you're saying on I like him as a tight end. I think he is a culture guy. That doesn't mean that he's going to be a Cleveland Brown next year.
But why do you think we're going to lose him in free agency? Like, you don't know that for sure. There's a chance we get him back too.
Because well, one, we have Fannin on a cheap deal for multiple years. You know, and Joku signed a $54 million contract with the Browns during 2022. It just getting value now. I mean, why do you think that we're gonna spend big money on him this offseason? I just don't
I
see that happening.
I didn't know $54 million on a tight end was really big money in the NFL. I know you're used to the Dolans and what they spend on players, but $54 million on a starting tight end in the NFL is nothing. And another reason why I'm not on the trade bandwagon, and this is going to continue to come up throughout the rest of the video now, is I want to keep pieces around these young guys
Hold on,
that
hold on,
help
hold
them
on.
continue to what?
I got to call you out here because he's the sixth highest paid tight end in the NFL. Only George Kittle, Trey McBride, Travis Kelsey, TJ Hawkinson, and Mark Andrews is above him. So you want to tell me
Okay.
again that $54 million isn't a lot of money for a tight end?
And why do we care about what Jimmy Haslam spends?
Eh, Okay, now you're creating a straw man argument. Let's talk about the player himself.
Right. And
It
I
has,
think the player makes a lot of sense to be on this roster still.
and we can't use that money to maybe get a wide receiver that is going to catch more balls.
Who? Who?
I don't know. I'm not
Okay,
the
so that
GM.
don't pose the question if you don't have the answer, Sway.
Okay. But you're saying let's re-sign him for, I'm gonna say it again, big money, when I think there's more positions of need where that big money could go.
I bet you. What does it say on Spotrac right now that his potential next year would be? Do you know?
I don't have it.
I don't have it either. I was trying to see if I could pull it up real quick. It doesn't matter. We can get into the nitty gritty. We can get in on all of this. We don't know what his contract's going to be. We're two guys talking about sports at the end of the day. I think for my money, I would rather keep David Njoku to be put around these young guys to have another weapon instead of losing another weapon this season that would then hinder Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, blah, Isaiah Bond, whoever else you want to say, Quinshon Judkins development because he's a better blocking tight end. He is a better fit for what we need to do right now. And we can worry about next season. Next season, when you trade a David Njoku, what are we going to get? A fifth round pick out of him?
I don't know. I mean, it depends if they can, if the team that's trading for him can sign him to a longer term deal, that's where it depends on what they're gonna give up.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I don't think you're gonna get convinced, and I don't think I'm going to convince you on a Joku unless you have any other thoughts out there.
No, I mean, your cap hit goes up, first of all. And that's again, I don't necessarily worry about that, but it's like an extra 4% to the cap next year. And obviously it's dependent on what you resign, et cetera. I don't know. I don't know that he does enough. For how many years was he the king of drops, too? Yes, he's become a fairly reliable target. Um, he also has injury concerns. I just don't know that a guy that's, turning 30 should command that much money. This isn't Travis Kelsey we're talking about, which I wouldn't pay him that much either at this point in his career. I'm just not sold on him anymore.
I my thing is you're hung up on money that you don't even know what the answer for the money is. I don't think some team's gonna
Oh, I
pay
can't
him
know yet.
asinine. Right, but okay, so for example, he made what, 13,000 on average per year? Or
13
13 million,
million,
excuse me. Do you think he's gonna command that again in free agency?
probably.
Why?
Because he's not that old and he's a decent tight end. Why wouldn't he?
I don't know, man. I don't
Every
think it
argument you just gave me for why we should keep him would go into the same column of why another team should trade for him. So if you're saying all these good things, then why wouldn't he command that price?
because of the age and the same things. I just think he's a good fit for the Browns at the end of the day, and I think that's the answer here.
My other question would be, why is every major outlet reporting on him being a likely trade outlet and likely being lost next year if he's not traded?
Well, who's reporting that he's gonna be lost? I will agree that
Yahoo
it's been
Sports,
rumored
CBS Sports, several outlets that he'd
saying
be lost
exactly
in free agency. Yeah.
pointing to what in terms of reference though, and I'm not trying to pull a straw man on you right now, but you can look at it from the macro and say, yeah, he's probably going to be lost because he's a tight end and he's on an expiring deal. But then you look at what's going on with David Njoku right now, and he's talking about how he wants to get 216 tattooed on his body. And he's talking about how bought in he is to the culture and how much of a culture guy he is for Cleveland. Like there's other angles to this aside
A
from
year and a half ago,
Yahoo
he wanted to be
Sports.
traded. I don't care about that, and I don't know that the team cares. I like it as a fan. Team doing business, that means nothing to them, in my opinion.
There, I am still firmly on the side of I want David Njoku on this roster because I think he's a good thing for the culture. I think he's a good thing for the development of our young players and moving this offense forward for the time being.
Here's where I disagree, and I think shit's gonna hit the fan, and um, that's a pun, obviously, but
That was
where
pretty
I
bad,
just
man.
I know it was bad, but where I disagree is that I don't think that he moves this offense forward in a way that, we've used him as an outlet kind of guy. We talk about struggling to get the ball downfield to throw more than 10 yards. He's a guy that sits at 6, 7 yards. So is he nice in the red zone? Yeah, absolutely. I love him as a target when we get to the red zone. The problem is this team needs to get to the red zone. So I'm just not sure he's impacting. Like where we're hurting so much is at wideout right now. He's just not helping us enough, in my
But
opinion.
you're not giving him up to get a wideout, Eric. You're giving him up to get a 5th round pick that cool, whatever. That's great. It's another 5th round pick to add to our pile of 5th round picks. If
It's
you want a
giving him
wideout,
up thinking that we're not gonna re-sign him, and if that's the case and we're gonna spend that money elsewhere, or we think that someone else will spend more than we're comfortable spending, it's getting something for him now in a season where it doesn't matter.
and I don't think that there's this be all end all. We will not retain him into next year. I think there's a large a chance that we can retain him. We're going in circles at this
Yeah,
point
I think
because
we
you
just
think
gotta agree to disagree.
we do because I think I'm on one end where I think he could very well come back. You're on the other end of just not. He's gone, and maybe you're right. Maybe I'm right. Who knows?
Well, we'll
Let's move
find
on to
out.
a
We have less than a year, and we'll know for sure.
That's true. That's true. Let's move on to another free agent. I love me some of the Chief, and maybe that's a little bias showing as well, but who knows? This free agent, though, one Shelby Harris, who has been a staple on the inside of our defensive line, is another name, an aging player that is a potential free agent candidate that's been named in all of these beautiful publications that Eric has pointed out towards. What do you think about trading Shelby Harris?
I'm split on this one. First of all, you should put up stats for a guy that has 4 solo tackles and 0 sacks on the season when we talk about a staple of the defense, but I'm split because I actually really like Shelby Harris. I think you keep him, only because, 1, he's on a very team-friendly deal, and regardless, it's a one-year deal. Whether he comes back next year or not is immaterial at this point, because I don't think you get anything for him to make a difference.
So you're using the same argument I used on Njoku for Shelby Harris.
Yes, but somewhat, it's somewhat. This
Yeah,
isn't
100%.
no, this isn't hypocrisy here. This is that we'd get way less for a Shelby Harris than a in prime tight end, in my opinion. Nobody's
So
buying on Shelby Harris.
you get a 6 for Shelby Harris, you get a 5th for David Njoku. Whoopee!
You don't
Woo!
think we could get a 4th for
No,
David Njoku?
not with him as his agent
If they're gonna
contract. No,
extend him?
no.
Yeah, you never know. Shelby Harris is also turning 35 next year. Like, I just don't think anybody's signing this guy.
I think Shelby Harris could be a good trade candidate, but like I said, for my trend, I'm fine with keeping all of these pieces aside from Jerome Ford that we're going to talk about because I think it only hinders the development of the rookies. Not having good pieces around young players does not help them. I understand the idea of wanting to tank and wanting to get a better draft pick and blase blah, but having Shelby Harris next to one Mason Graham and rotating in with Mike Hall when he comes back and rotating with some of the younger guys that are on this roster, Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, all of the people in that front seven, really, it only helps. It only helps continue to build up and continue what is going on with what has been great rookie play for the Cleveland Browns so far.
Well, tell me this. Do you think that Shelby Harris is a Cleveland Brown next year? Do we re-sign him in another, 1-year stint?
They could. It's kind of in the same realm, a much lesser realm, mind you, than as David Njoku, though. I think it could make sense depending on what that money looks like. Bring him in, continue to have that rotation. Defensive lines rotate very often in a game.
See, I think it's
So I
way
could.
different than Njoku. Njoku's gonna be looking for, like, a 6, 7-year contract, in my opinion.
That's not going to happen. Not in the NFL, not at his age.
I I don't know. I mean, I think he's gonna command way more years than Shelby Harris would, that's for sure.
I think you could get Njoku on a 2, 3 year deal max and put it at like 8 mil, 7, 6 mil. We're going back to Njoku because we want to try to
I
convince each
disagree,
other. I
but
know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Let's move on to the meat and potatoes, pun intended. I'm full of puns today for some reason. The O line. This is a interesting situation that we have because we've been all over the place with this O line. Prior to the season, we thought, wow, we have a really senior O line in a positive way. As the season's gone on, we've kind of flipped that script. I don't know where either of us really stand here, but give me your takes. Let's start with Joel Bitonio.
I see. I grouped the 3 linemen together for a reason for my take. So I guess that's the perk you get when you put together the graphic earlier in the day. But I'm not moving on to any of these either because the O line's already abysmal. So why would we get rid of the 3 best players on the O line, whether they're aging and not as good as they used to be in, to further hinder what's going on with the quarterback play and the running play? No, just keep them. We'll figure it out later.
Well, put that graphic back up though, because the stats, are they that good? That would be
No,
my question.
No, they're better than the rest of the O line. They're not a great O line anymore by any means. I'm not saying that, but they're the 3 best players we have in terms of this position group, and deteriorating that more for some minuscule draft capital. I'm talking day 3 picks is not worth it in my opinion, not whatsoever.
Here's where I'm going to say it really depends. And what it depends on, in my opinion, is the moves that we plan to make ourselves to trade for guys, etc., working in free agency, draft capital, that sort of thing. Because I think we do plan to restructure this O line in the ops. I hope we do, because we can't keep going at this pace. Um, we talk about the game against Miami. As good as that game looked, the run game still stagnated a little bit, and that's because of this O line. They've been okay in pass protection. Looking at those stats of those guys, they don't look very good, but the eye test, they've been okay. But then again, you look at one Joe Flacco that goes to what I thought was a worse O line. He has some targets though, and all of a sudden he looks like prime Peyton Manning or Tom Brady. So I don't know how I feel about these guys. I will say it's such an aging line. Joel Bitonio turns 35. Pocic turns 31 next year, and then Wyatt Teller turns 32. So those two, obviously, you have a little more leeway. Bitonio's getting up there though for an O lineman.
Yeah, no, I mean Batonio's probably done after this year. They basically had to beg him to come back so that way they could stall some of the holes that are going on with the offensive line. You say you hope they rework it. I think everybody hopes they rework it, but the reality of the situation is the O line talent coming into the league versus the D line talent coming into the league, for example, is it's completely different. The O line talent has not been good, and it seems like the same is going to ring true for this NFL draft. So it's going to be a longer process than wipe the 5 clean, put 5 new ones out there, and let's start over and do this again. And we're young and we're great. It's going to take longer than that. So moving away from a guy like Wyatt Teller or Ethan Pocic, who have been anchors on this offensive line. And yes, they are not playing like they did in 21 when we made the playoffs or 23 when we made the playoffs, but they're still solid starters, and continue to put pieces around them and move them out as time goes on is probably the smartest play here. So moving these guys now when you have rookie quarterbacks playing for the rest of the season doesn't make sense. And moving these guys looking at next year when you might have another rookie quarterback playing, one that you invested high draft capital in, none of it makes sense to me.
Well, I'll say this, Wyatt Teller's making around 14 million a year. If we are going to extend him, I don't think it's at that same rate. I mean, I think we pay the man less, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, and I don't think he would expect that money either, considering how his numbers have looked this year and all of that. I mean, I think he could come back for a decent amount of change. I think he's the main name in terms of trade candidates just because he is another expiring contract. But to me, bringing back a Posick and a Teller next year and using them as your anchors, your vets in that room, even though they aren't playing like they used to, is probably the smartest option to, again, have continuity and continue without having to try to cobble together an O line even more than we have to at this point in time.
So who is the upcoming, I mean, who's that Spencer Fano, however you say his name at Utah? Is he the next, I mean, who is out there in college at least that we could say, okay, maybe he's the guy?
There isn't. There isn't a lot of O-line hype right now in terms of the the draft at all. There's one kid from Iowa, I believe, sticks out in my mind, but he had a rough start to his season and now he's playing really good. I mean, when I talk about the talent coming in at offensive line and the talent coming in at defensive line, they just don't stack up the same. It's true. You can see it with guys that we've had hype for before. Hype is a strong term, but Zach Zinter is a guy that comes to mind that I thought was going to be a good mid round developmental selection. And he hasn't even been on the active game day roster this season. He's been on it like once. I mean, this is the kind of thing that we're seeing not just in Cleveland, but around the league at the offensive line position.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We need to we need to get guys somewhere. Obviously, not everybody in. I think you were talking about Logan Jones, by the way, but not everybody in college is going to be a bust. Logan Jones is a center though, so I'm not even sure how he would fit into this team for us. Um, there are some guys though. I miss those old corn-fed, Alabama, Georgia Bulldog guys that were mountains that you could rely on, and it just feels like you're right. We don't have that anymore, but I think there are guys out there. There's got to be.
Well, we'll see. I can't think of like I said, I can't even name prospects right now, and I'm an O line guy. There's Pete names floating, but again, it is early in the
Spencer Fano.
process.
Look
Yeah,
him up. He's the guy.
I hope you're right, Eric. I hope your deep intuition and understanding of the offensive line is true with this one.
I'm multi-talented when it comes to this. I tend to agree with you though. I'm not sure that we should be trading any of these guys, especially Joel. If he is done after this season, doing that to him is just kind of a slap in the face. Unless there's a one like Kansas City Chiefs or somebody that really wants him and he could chase a ring for a couple months. But other than that, I'm just not sure it's worth it.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be another one like how it came out. They asked Flacco if it was cool with him if he got traded. It would have to be the same thing for me. But even then, it's like I was excited about them bringing in Tevin Jenkins, and they barely play him on like heavy personnel packages right now. So, what does that tell you what they think about Tevin Jenkins, who was a guy that I thought was going to potentially start maybe at tackle for us at one point? He's played a little bit with all the injuries now, but it's shaky out there in terms of offensive line play. And it's not just us. If you want to feel a little bit better about it, at least it is not just the Cleveland Browns.
I think it's going to be interesting though, because there are so many needs that this team needs to address. And I think they need to do that through free agency. They need to do that through the draft. They need to do that through the trade block with some of our own players. And that's why I talk about Njoku like that. Maybe it's a situation where we do re-sign Njoku to a team-friendly deal and then consider trading him. Um, but I don't know at this point.
It sounds like you're being a little stubborn on Choku, man, because you just said sign to a team friendly deal and then trade him, but you don't want to do that to Joel Bitonio, which is basically what we did. We asked him to come back for a year to plug a hole, and
Oh,
then you don't
Batonio's
want
not
to.
gonna play anyway. He's old man Batonio.
Right, but we're talking about what we were just talking about with the O line, where you said, I don't want to do that to Joel. That sounds cruel. You're going to bring in a guy that loves the culture and what he
No,
has going
no,
on in
listen,
Cleveland.
you misunderstand me, and I'm gonna borrow from the movie Moneyball. In Moneyball, he talks about, there are teams that spend this, et cetera, and then there's 50 feet of shit, and then there's us. We're here right now. To get to here, let's call this playoffs. There is so much that this team has to do, and you have to make tough decisions at the end of the day. The one thing that I know, this roster is not a playoff roster. The defense might be, but the offense certainly isn't. So saying, "Oh, I really like X and O," well, they haven't gotten us where we need to be. So if it's not the player, then it's coaching. You can't keep them all, Noah. On that note, we can debate in person because we're going to be together Sunday for the Browns game. We are back on the road, and I cannot wait.
I can't wait either, man. We are kicking it live from Tapster, Cleveland in Lakewood this Sunday, 12 p.m. for a Browns pregame show. Hang out with us, come have a beer, come enjoy our company. We're going to be talking Browns. We're going to be talking a whole slew of topics. Make sure you're there for that. Eric, tell them about the other shows we have going on.
Yeah, then we're at High and Dry 2 weeks from then, which I'm excited for. It's a cool spot. And then back in the Muni lot, maybe the last time of the year, just as weather dependent. It should be fun though. Come find us in the Muni. We'll have that at the office flag flying high. And we also have a giveaway.
We do have a giveaway. All you got to do, subscribe and leave a comment on a recent video here on the At the Office YouTube page. You'll be entered to win either a Browns or Cavs jersey of your choice. You name the player, we'll ship it to your door free of charge from yours truly and yours truly to my right, left. I can't tell.
I think I'm on the right. I am partial to that Cavs jersey. I didn't know how I felt about the blue because I loved them back in the day, and it just feels like we've moved on from that. But it's starting to grow on me once again.
Hey, it's making me feel a little old. My first Cavs jersey was the LeBron like that, and now I'm gonna have to go buy myself an Evan Mobley one because they're back and they're a throwback. I'm getting old, man. I'm getting old.
Aren't we all? On that final note, the debate never ends, but the show does for now. We'll see you next time.